let's talk about the powerful concept of revision. Can you change your past memories? And if you do, how would it affect your life now? But more importantly, what you can create in your life moving forward. But we're gonna look at it from the lens of neuroscience. What has neuroscience shown us, demonstrated? And you'll see it's pretty much a game changer when it comes to transforming your life. So let's go straight into it. First, if you've never heard of what is revision kind of thing, it's actually one of the teachings of Neville Goddard. And basically what it is simply a tool to help you change negative past experiences, memories that are limiting you, that are preventing you from creating certain things, being free, being authentic, being confident, like whatever the context is, it helps you let go of certain things that happened in the past that are still affecting you today so that you can move forward and create, manifest whatever it is that you want in your life. And so this is something that can be a little bit weird at first, because when I first learned about the concept, I had a bit of resistance. I was like, well, if I start changing my past memories, am I lying to myself? If I start pretending that something happened or it happened this way and so on, will it make me delusional? Will it make me lose touch with the reality that actually happened, and I will start living in a fiction, becoming delusional and crazy, this type of things, right? But revision is actually very different. And this is where neuroscience steps in, because it completely clears up and it will show you exactly why revision or hypnotic regression or so many modalities that use this concept is so powerful. And I want you to think about this for a second. What if you are already changing your past memories every time you think about it? Sounds pretty crazy, right? But this is exactly what neuroscience has discovered. It's the simple fact that every time you rethink, revisit one of your old memories, you slightly change it. You distort, you change the meaning, the interpretation, you add things, you remove things. If you're angry, maybe you add a bit of that emotion. You change that memory ever so slightly every time you think about it. Now, what happens if you think of a memory 100 times, 500 times, 1,000 times, and every time you change it slightly? What does that mean in terms of how it defines your life, the story of your life, of your past, and who you are now? That's some pretty crazy things when you think about it, because it simply means that how you think the past actually happened, your memory, is no longer a direct representation of what actually happened. Now, the first thing that we have to understand is that also your memories are always subjective to start with, because of the interpretation, the meaning, the story, the emotion you attach to it, right? It is subjective by default, but it is yours. But now, 20, 30, 40 years later, we are all living pretty much a lie. We think this is how it happened and what it means and so on, but really, if you ever thought about that memory at least a few times, you have changed it slightly. Now, maybe you made it better, maybe you made it worse. And we all know we have a tendency to take little things and to blow them out of proportion. We all know we've been in situations, and if we're honest, a lot, when the ego mind goes crazy and we make things bigger. Something happened and we create a gigantic story around it. Now, in that moment, we are already changing the initial memory, the initial event that happened, and we changed it, embellished it, polished it in a crazy way to negative thinking, limiting thinking, emotions, projections, and so on. So we are the result of our past memories, right? Because all that data lives at a subconscious level. And so when we understand the world, like information comes to you, things happen, your subconscious mind simply screens out what it is based on what you know from the past. Yeah, what you've learned, all the information, all that data. And you automatically create a meaning of thought, an internal representation in your mind about whatever you're experiencing right now. So think about all the past that you're projecting on your now and on your future, and all the limitations that exist in your past memories and how they're affecting you now, but also what you can create in the future. I remember so many times when I was told you're shy, you're timid, you're reserved, you're too tall, you're a slow learner, all those things when I was just a kid. I have so many memories of that. But what happens when I start changing the meaning of those memories? When I no longer accept the truth of what somebody told me, you're shy, you're timid, you're this, you're that, you're not enough of that, you're too much of this. What if I say, stop, that is no longer the truth for me? What if I start releasing the embarrassment, the fear, the anger, the hurt, the bitterness that I had in those memories, and I look at them through empowerment, and I learn from them, and I create a new story, a new definition? How would that affect who I am today, but also what I can do, what I can create, how I feel, how I show up, how I interact with others, how I see myself ultimately? Well, if you do that on some random small minor event, maybe the outcome is small minor. But what if you do that on big emotional scars, or mental scars that we all have, that we still carry subconsciously, that still strongly define who we are now, whether it's in relationship, whether it's in your job, whether it's your confidence, self-esteem, or being too nice or insecure, whether it's about money or investing or whatever it may be. Everything that you've experienced in your life is shaping your moment, your decision, who you are, how you think, how you behave now. So the art of revision, but also understanding the neuroscience around it, shows you that if you are already changing your memories, whether you think about it or not, whether you do it intentionally or unconsciously or not, what if you start to use this for your advantage? What if you start to use revision, meaning you think of an old memory, whether it's bitterness or anger or limitation or limiting belief or something around this way, something negative that still affects you today, and you start to learn from it, and you start to let go of that emotional charge, that bitterness, that shame, whatever it is. You start to learn from it, and you choose a new meaning it no longer defines you in the old way, in the old decision, in the old interpretation of what happened, but you choose that it's no longer the truth for you, and you create a truth that is so much more empowering now. This is basically what I do when I do hypnotic regression with my clients, right? We revisit painful experiences that are left, emotional scars that are defining, affecting people's now, right? They project that on the future, on people, relationship, money, jobs, and so on, prevents them from creating what they want. And so we let go of that. And what happens when you let go of that? You transmute that energy. And now that information becomes a greater information, and now it opens new doors, new possibility for you, for the person, to act differently, to show up differently. And it completely changes what's possible and how people show up in their life. Think about a relationship, a breakup, something that happened 20 years ago, where maybe you were cheated on or betrayed or hurt, and you feel like, I can never trust again, I'm gonna get hurt again, it's easier to be alone. And you made those kind of things, and you replayed that hurt and those drama and those fights and those things so many times. And subconsciously, it became a belief system. And every time you go into a relationship, you project that, and you expect something to go wrong, so you become more safe, you hold back, you become more, you just don't trust that much anymore. You don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, to create that intimacy anymore. What if you go back and changed the meaning of those memories, the story you've created? What if you start to let go of the emotional charge, what it meant for you? How would it affect you today? But also, who would you start attracting in your life when you choose love instead of hurt? When you choose faith instead of doubt or fear? This is the power of revision. Now, of course, if you have highly traumatic memories of things that are overwhelming you with emotion, I think it's much better to go see a professional, somebody who's skilled, somebody who can guide you, somebody who can help you, because you don't want to be just stuck into something where you're completely overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, right? But for small, medium memory, little things that happen in your life, instead of feeling like a victim, helpless again, and so on, what if you learn to let go? What if you just learn from the experience and transform who you are today, so that you're no longer defined by what happened so many years ago? That's the power of revision, and this is something we automatically do. And even in the justice system, with eyewitness and so on, they have discovered through studies and research that up to 70% of eyewitness, meaning like I saw this, I saw the person, I witnessed that thing, 70% end up being wrong, corrected by actual facts, cameras, DNA, tangible facts, right? So they also noticed that the first day testimony of that eyewitness and 6 months later is usually already massively differently, because every time the person think about what they think they saw, they change it, or they just become more into it. Or they can just become more influenced by the way people ask them questions. You really saw him, didn't you? Really think hard. He was there, wasn't he? Right? So we know we can influence people's perception, and this is why eyewitness are no longer considered extremely accurate. Even though the person really believed that I saw what I saw. And how many of us are stuck in past experiences where we think like, I was there, this really happened, how could I let go of this, think about it differently, or let it go, or forgive, or pretend it didn't happen? This is not about pretending it didn't happen. This is not about just erasing it. This is about transmuting it into something that serves you, that works for you. This is about choosing that if I'm constantly thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it to the same old emotion, I'm making it bigger. So it affects me bigger every time. But what if I start to learn? What if I start to choose freedom, love, courage? What if I choose that I want my future freedom more than I want the past jail and experiences and so on? What if I'm ready to let go? This is why revision is such a powerful tool. So I hope this video makes sense. I hope it really helps you understand your memory and your imagination are closely interlinked. Every time you revisit something, you are using your imagination. You're recalling data from the past, but through the lens of your imagination, through who you are now, your mood, your thoughts, you alter, distort, change that memory. And you do it once, twice, 100 times, 1,000 times. What is the real effect? How much has it changed from day one to 10 years later? And what is the effect in your life? Is it helping you, empowering you, or is it keeping you more stuck, more bitter, more angry, more in fear, more ashamed, more limited? So if you want to set yourself free, remember that perception equals creation. You are your own master when it comes to create and choose your own story. You can choose to edit the story, learn from the story, add new data in the story that helps you create your best life now. As long as it's not hurting anybody else, you are free to create your own story. And if you need help to break through certain limitations, to overcome certain blocks or doubts or insecurity that you have, you can book a coaching session down in the description. There is the link. I will see you next time. Hit that subscribe button. Be well.